Over 20 million records sold worldwide, one of the most celebrated live albums in rock history. A top 7 UK chart position that matched Led Zeppelin. Top 40 success in America alongside Aerosmith and Van Halen. They influenced Metallica, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, and Def Leppard. They helped define heavy metal before the genre even had a name. UFO wasn't just successful, they were unstoppable. Then it all collapsed. Their teenage guitar prodigy walked off stage mid-tour in California and never came back. The live album that would cement their legend was recorded while the band was falling apart. Members vanished before shows, leaving promoters scrambling. Alcohol and drugs turned genius into chaos. The bassist, who co-founded the band, died at 69 from injuries sustained falling down the stairs of his own home. Critics called their post-Schenker work desperate. Fans called it betrayal. Michael Schenker, just 18 years old when he joined, was playing club shows in Germany when UFO changed his life. 5 years later, he quit at the absolute peak of their success, walking away from arena tours and platinum albums to pursue what he called pure self-expression. The band that had matched the commercial power of the biggest acts in rock couldn't fill mid-sized theaters anymore without their guitar hero, Pete Way, the wild man bassist whose melodic lines underpinned every classic UFO song. Spent decades battling addiction, walking away from the band multiple times, only to return when the money ran out. Phil Mogg, the voice that gave UFO their emotional depth, watched his band become a nostalgia act. His farewell tour canceled by a heart attack 2 months before what was supposed to be the final show. They went from headlining festivals to fighting over who owned the name. From stadiums to silence, this is the story of how brilliance became poison. How 5 musicians from London created some of the greatest hard rock ever recorded, then watched success magnify every crack until nothing remained but regret. But to understand the collapse, we have to go back to 1968, to London, where none of this seemed remotely possible. London, 1968. Rock and roll wasn't respectable here yet. It was rebellion wrapped in amplifiers. This was a city rebuilding from war, where working-class kids turned to music not as escapism, but as survival. The clubs were small, the crowds were skeptical, and success meant nothing unless you earned it. That's where UFO were born. The band started as Hocus Pocus back in 1968. For young musicians playing psychedelic space rock in London clubs, they weren't polished. They weren't commercial. They were weird, experimental, and fascinated by the cosmos. Phil Mogg, the vocalist, gritty and emotional, a frontman who sang like he'd lived through every word. Pete Way, the bassist, wild-eyed and fearless, whose energy on stage was manic and infectious. Andy Parker, the drummer, steady and solid, the backbone that never wavered. Mick Bolton, the guitarist, experimental and atmospheric, pushing boundaries no one asked him to push. Together, they became UFO. Their early sound was unlike anything on the radio. Spacey guitar effects, hypnotic bass lines, lyrics about UFOs and cosmic journeys. They released 3 albums on Beacon Records between 1970 and 1972. They found success in Japan, Germany, and France, but in England, barely noticed. Most bands would have dissolved, but UFO had something the industry didn't understand yet: hunger. In 1973, everything changed. The Scorpions, a young German band, were opening for UFO on a German tour. Their lead guitarist was a kid, barely 18, but when he played, rooms went silent. His name was Michael Schenker. He had a Gibson Flying V guitar and a gift that seemed supernatural. UFO needed a new guitarist. Mick Bolton had left. They'd cycled through Larry Wallace and Bernie Marsden, neither quite right. When they offered the position to Schenker, he accepted. He didn't even speak English. He didn't care. He just wanted to play. Michael Schenker, intense, withdrawn, almost painfully shy off stage, but with a guitar in his hands, he became something else. His solos were melodic, but brutal, technical, but emotional. He didn't just play notes. He painted. This was the lineup. That would change everything. Phil Mogg on vocals, Pete Way on bass, Eddie Parker on drums, Michael Schenker on guitar. They signed to Chrysalis Records in 1974 and began recording what would become their breakthrough. But even in the beginning, the seeds of destruction were already there. Schenker didn't speak the language. He felt isolated. Pete Way was already Drinking heavily, disappearing after shows, coming back barely functional, Mog was ambitious. Hungry for chart success, willing to do whatever it took to get there. They just didn't know it yet. By 1974, the lineup solidified. Phil Mogg, Pete Way, Eddie Parker, Michael Schenker, and later, keyboardist Paul Raymond, who brought texture and depth to their increasingly complex sound. This was the lineup that would change everything. Their sound was unlike anything on the radio. Schenker's melodic but aggressive guitar work, Mogg's raw, emotional vocals, Way's driving bass lines that walked the line between blues and metal. It was hard rock with soul, heavy without being clumsy, and themic without being cheesy. Phenomenon in 1974 hit number 193 on the Billboard 100 in the U.S. and began UFO's climb. Powered by Dr. Doctor, the song opened with Schenker's now iconic guitar riff, a descending melodic line that became instantly recognizable. Mogg's vocals came in desperate, pleading, raw. The song wasn't just a hit, it was a statement. UFO had arrived. Critics called them pretentious. Fans called them prophets. June 28, 1978. Hammersmith Odeon, London. UFO walked on stage to a sold-out crowd. Schenker's flying V guitar cut through the mix like a blade. Way bounced across the stage. Sweat flying. Grinning like a madman, Mogg stood center, gripping the mic, delivering every lyric like a confession. It was electric. It was dangerous. It worked. Forced It in 1975 cracked the UK Top 75 and climbed to number 71 on the Billboard 200. Songs like Shoot Shoot and Let It Roll became live staples. Schenker, just 19 years old, was developing into one of the most respected guitarists in rock. Lights Out in 1977 was the breakthrough. It hit number 23 in the UK and number 23 in the US. The title track became a hard rock anthem. The Hot to Handle burned up rock radio. UFO were touring with Led Zeppelin, Rush, Thin Lizzy. They were headlining their own arena shows. Obsession. In 1978 continued the momentum. Number 26 in the UK, number 41 in the US. Heavier, darker, more intense. Only You Can Rock Me became a signature song. They were touring with AC/DC, Blue Oyster Cult, Styx, Jethro Tull, Rio Speedwagon. UFO were everywhere. But beneath this triumph, something dark was growing. Schenker was drinking heavily. He'd disappear before shows, sometimes mid-tour, leaving the band scrambling to find replacements. Guitarist Paul Chapman was brought in multiple times to finish tours Schenker abandoned. Mogg was obsessed with success. He told Schenker after no heavy petting, "If it doesn't make it, I'm going to quit." Schenker realized Mogg was chasing fame, money, recognition. Schenker wanted freedom, pure self-expression. Their visions were incompatible, and the machine kept rolling faster than any of them could control. If you're enjoying this video, don't forget to subscribe. Strangers in the Night. His was it, the apex, the live album, recorded across 6 concerts during the Obsession tour. In 1978, captured UFO at their absolute peak. October 1978, Chicago, Louisville, Palo Alto. Schenker's guitar solos extended to 10, 12, 15 minutes. Rock Bottom became a showcase for pure virtuosity. The crowd noise was deafening. The energy was unstoppable. Strangers in the Night was released in January 1979. It hit number 7 in the UK, number 40 on the Billboard 200. It's often listed among the greatest live rock albums ever recorded alongside Thin Lizzy's Live and Dangerous and Cheap Tricks at Budokan. Asterisk, no British hard rock band had captured lightning in a bottle like this since Led Zeppelin. They were untouchable. But what fans didn't see was the resentment building behind the smiles. Michael Schenker still wanted artistic freedom. Phil Mogg wanted chart dominance. Pete Way was drowning in substances. Arguments backstage became physical. Schenker would walk off mid-song, leaving the band stranded. The pressure kept building. In October 1978, during the Obsession tour, after a show in Palo Alto, California, Michael Schenker quit UFO. Just walked out. He later described the environment as suffocating. Mogg was antagonizing him, pushing him toward breakdown. The lifestyle, the drugs, the constant touring, the commercial pressure to repeat Lights Out success. Schenker was only 23 years old. He'd been in UFO for 5 years. He was exhausted. He left at the very height of their powers. Pete Way later said, "Obviously we were disappointed. It's not easy to promote an album without a guitarist. We were starting to draw a lot of people, and the album was selling. But he'd also disappeared on the Lights Out tour, so nothing surprised us. Most bands would have collapsed, but UFO didn't. They brought back Paul Chapman, the guitarist who'd filled in before. They finished the tour. They released Strangers in the Night, the live album recorded while Schenker was still in the band, and it became their biggest commercial success. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. UFO's defining moment came from recordings made while the band was imploding. Schenker briefly rejoined the Scorpions, playing on their Love Drive album in 1979, then formed the Michael Schenker Group. UFO pressed on. They recorded No Place to Run in January 1980 with producer George Martin, the former Beatles producer. It hit number 11 in the UK. Not bad, but it wasn't Lights Out. It was an obsession. Paul Raymond left after the No Place to Run tour. Joining Schenker's new band, UFO replaced him with Neil Carter, former Wild Horses guitarist and keyboardist. They streamlined. They simplified. They chased the radio. It was professional. It was competent. It was everything UFO used to mock, and it worked. For a while, they released The Wild, The Willing and the Innocent in 1981, Mechanics in 1982. They maintained arena status, but the soul was gone, but beneath the chart positions. The real cost was building. Pete Way left in 1982. Dissatisfied with the band's increasingly commercial direction, he briefly joined Ozzy Osbourne's touring band during the Diary of a Madman tour, then formed Wasted with Fast Eddie Clarke from Motorhead. Now UFO was Phil Mogg, Eddie Parker, Neil Carter, and replacement bassist. It was functional. It was hollow. The tide was beginning to turn. The end was coming. Making Fire in 1983 peaked at number 106 in the UK. Just 106. The first UFO album since 1975 not to crack the top 40. They tried. Mogg held auditions for new members. They toured smaller venues. They released Misdemeanor in 1985 after reforming briefly. It barely registered. Most bands would have quit, but Mogg couldn't let go. UFO was his identity. So they did what they'd done before. They held auditions. They found replacements. They pretended everything was fine. In 1993, the classic lineup reunited: Phil Mogg, Pete Way, Eddie Parker, Paul Raymond, and Michael Schenker. 17 years after the golden era, they recorded Walk on Water in 1995. It was a modest success. Number 46 in Germany. For a moment, it felt like healing, but Schenker's return was temporary. He stayed for tours in the late 1990s, returned again in 2000 for Covenant, a double CD with new material and live classics. He appeared on Sharks in 2002. Then, in 2003, Michael Schenker left UFO for good. He was replaced by Vinnie Moore, a talented guitarist who'd done nothing wrong except accept an impossible job. UFO without Schenker had worked in 1980 because Paul Chapman brought fresh energy. UFO without Schenker in 2003 just felt hollow. The band released albums. You Were Here in 2004. The Monkey Puzzle in 2006. They toured, but the audience was aging. The venues were shrinking. Then came the losses. In April 2019, keyboardist Paul Raymond died of a heart attack. He was 73 years old. The man who played on Lights Out, Obsession, and every classic UFO record was gone. In June 2020, guitarist Paul Chapman, who'd stepped in for Schenker multiple times and saved tours from collapse, died. He was 66. In August 2020, Pete Way died. He was 69, just 1 week after his 70th birthday. He'd fallen down the stairs at his home 2 months earlier, sustained life-threatening injuries, fought for weeks, but succumbed. The bassist who co-founded UFO, whose melodic lines defined their sound, whose wild energy made them dangerous, was gone. He died without reconciling with Mogg. He died bitter, broke, and broken. The band that had sold 20 million records, that had influenced Metallica and Iron Maiden, that had created Strangers in the Night, couldn't fill mid-sized theaters anymore. By 2022, UFO quietly went on indefinite hiatus. No official breakup, no farewell tour, just silence. Actually, there was supposed to be a farewell tour. Phil Mogg announced in May 2018 that UFO's 50th anniversary tour in 2019 would be his last. The tour was extended to 2022. The final show was scheduled for October 29, 2022 in Athens, It never happened. On September 1st, 2022, Phil Mogg suffered a heart attack. He had the stents implanted into his coronary arteries. Doctors pronounced a strict performance ban. The entire Last Order's farewell tour was canceled. Mogg later said, "I certainly didn't want to bow out in this fashion." But that's exactly what happened. The band that had conquered the world couldn't even finish a farewell tour. Where they went next tells you everything about what UFO had become. Michael Schenker became one of the most influential guitarists in rock history. He formed the Michael Schenker Group in 1979, released 18 studio albums under various names, toured the world, and influenced generations of metal guitarists including Kirk Hammett, who called Schenker a huge influence. He turned down offers from Aerosmith, Ozzy Osbourne, Deep Purple, Thin Lizzy, and Motorhead to focus on his solo career. He didn't need UFO, and UFO had needed him far more than anyone wanted to admit. In 2024, Schenker released My Years with UFO, an album of re-recorded UFO classics featuring guests including Axl Rose and Slash. He toured celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Schenker era from 1974 to 1978. He's 70 years old, still performing, still creating, still free. P-Way, the man who co-founded UFO, became a tragic figure. He formed Wasted, which had moderate success in the 1980s. He played bass for Ozzy Osbourne. He produced records for Twisted Sister and the Cockney Rejects. He released a brutally honest autobiography in 2017 titled A Fast Ride Out of Here, Confessions of Rock's Most Dangerous Man. He struggled with addiction his entire life. He suffered a heart attack in 2016. He battled prostate cancer in 2013. In June 2020, he fell down the stairs at his home. He fought for 2 months. He died on August 14, 2020, 1 week after his 70th birthday. Ozzy Osbourne tweeted, "Such sad news about P-Way. Haven't seen him for years, but will always have great memories and such unbelievable stories of what we get up to." Michael Schenker wrote, "Oh my dear Pete, I am so sad. You were more than you maybe knew. You were loved by everyone I know. Fly away and enjoy heaven." Phil Mogg, the voice of UFO for over 50 years, kept the band alive long after the soul had left. He released albums with various lineups. He toured constantly. He refused to let UFO die. In 2018, he announced his retirement after a 50th anniversary tour in 2019. COVID-19 pushed the farewell tour to 2022. On September 1st, 2022, he suffered a heart attack. The farewell tour was canceled. He recovered, but doctors banned him from performing. In April 2024, Mogg confirmed in an interview with Ultimate Classic Rock, "I think it's come to a conclusion. We did that last UK tour in 2019, just before COVID, so that was kind of the end of it, and the time was right." When asked about Michael Schenker's offer to do one final UFO show, Mogg said, "It would have to be pretty damn good. And if you stick something out there and it falls below par, then the audience, people who come along, will be disappointed. I can't see the stars aligning, so yeah, it would be too difficult." Translation, it's over. It's been over. There's no going back. Andy Parker, the drummer who'd been there from the beginning, lives privately now. He occasionally participates in music projects, but largely disappeared from public life for nearly a decade after 2003. UFO was a ghost of his former self, but the story wasn't over. Reunions happened. 1993, 1995, 2000, 2002. Each time, it felt like maybe, just maybe, the magic would return. It never did. The real war wasn't just about who showed up. It was about legacy. Decades later, the battle became about what UFO meant. Was it the Schenker era lineup of the 1970s, Creating Phenomenon, Lights Out, Obsession, and Strangers in the Night? Was it the post-Schenker lineup that proved UFO could survive without their guitar hero? Was it all of them and none of them at the same time? The lawsuits never came, but the emotional fractures were irreversible. Interviews grew colder. Collaborations stopped. The only thing they could agree on was that UFO was over. Over 20 million records sold. Influence on Metallica, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, Def Leppard, Megadeth, Testament, Alice in Chains. Strangers in the Night ranked among the greatest live albums ever. Ranked number 84 on V1's 100 Greatest Artists of Hard Rock. And still, decades later, they were at war over what any of it meant. UFO proved that you can sell 20 million records, create one of the greatest live albums in rock history, influence every major metal band of the 1980s and 1990s, and still lose everything that mattered. They became one of the most important hard rock bands of the 1970s by sacrificing the very thing that made them great, Michael Schenker's genius. And when the hits stopped coming, all that was left was bitterness, broken bodies, and the wreckage of what could have been. The success hid the addiction. The chart positions hid the resentment. The touring destroyed the brotherhood. And now, decades later, the only thing UFO can agree on is that they'll never agree. There are no reunions left, no reconciliations coming, just 5 brilliant musicians who created something extraordinary and spent the rest of their lives watching it crumble. Phil Mogg is 76, retired, recovering from a heart attack that ended his career mid-farewell. Michael Schenker is 70, still touring, still celebrating his UFO years on his own terms, still free. Pete Way is gone. Paul Raymond is gone. Paul Chapman is gone. Andy Parker remains silent, watching the legacy war from a distance. The music survived. The band didn't. What part of this story hits you the hardest? The fact that Schenker walked away at the peak? The fact that Pete Way died bitter and broke after giving everything to UFO? The canceled farewell tour that robbed fans of closure? Did you see them live? The Schenker era, the Chapman era, or the final tours with Vinnie Moore? Was UFO criminally underrated, or did they destroy their own legacy? Drop your memories and opinions below. And if this story fascinated you, hit like and subscribe, because the rise and fall of legends never gets old. Thanks for watching.